Right now, let's talk about Georgia, where the deadly teen daughter trial for Sarah Grace Patrick has been continued until August. The now 17-year-old was 16 when she was accused of murdering her mom, Kristin Brock, and her stepdad, James Brock, last February. Police say Patrick shot them multiple times while they slept and then left her 5-year-old baby sister to find them dead. Before we discuss it, here's more on the case against Sarah Patrick. When James and Kristin Brock were shot and killed in their bed in the middle of the night last February, everybody in their rural Georgia community was shocked. Kristin's then 16-year-old daughter, who called 911 after her 5-year-old half-sister found the bodies, took to TikTok to express her grief, even reaching out to podcasters to raise awareness of the unsolved murder.
She messaged me back on June 3rd and just said, search up Brock case. So I said, Brock Turner? Brock who? She said, Kristin and James Brock. They're my parents. And out of nowhere, a random Thursday night in February, someone came in my house with me and my 5-year-old sister, and my parents left them for me and my little sister to wake up to.
To some, Sarah Grace appeared to be the grieving daughter trying to solve this senseless crime. But to others, including some members of her stepdad's family, her tearful eulogy didn't feel sincere.
I just wanted to say goodbye to my mom and James since we never got the chance to. I was so used to you guys always being here to the point that I never once thought to imagine y'all not being here.
5 months after the violent deaths of Kristin and James Brock, Sarah Grace Patrick, accompanied by her father, turned herself in on charges of murder and aggravated assault.
Mountains of evidence has gotten us through here today. Lots of processing, lots of working with our law enforcement partners to get us to where we are today that honed in on her as a suspect.
Sarah Grace is charged as an adult with malice and felony murder and aggravated assault. She could face life in prison without parole if convicted of murder. And again, today was going to be jury selection followed by opening statements. It's been pushed back until August because of a medical expert that the defense hired. They don't even have the full report, so the state, of course, doesn't have it. The prosecution asked for a continuance and received one. Let's bring in our guest for the hour from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, coming off the big Steeler win last night, Matthew Mangino. This case, no surprise that it was surprising that they were going to go this quickly in a double murder. And now, because of this expert testimony that the state really needs a chance to comprehend and get their own expert, it's been pushed. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Ted, you're right. This isn't the kind of case normally that goes to trial, this quickly. You have a lot of different matters that have to be reviewed. You have a lot of evidence that has to be sift through and make decisions about whether it's admissible or not admissible. But you also have expert witnesses, and sometimes it takes time for an expert to not only evaluate the evidence, but to prepare a report, provide that report to the other side, in this situation to the prosecution. And then the prosecution has to make a decision. Are they going to hire an expert to counter this in that whole review and exchange of information as well? So I'm not surprised that this case has been put off for 8 months.
She was 16 at the time. And, different states handle it differently. We're seeing over decades where, that anyone under 18 was a juvenile and went through that system. When the crimes got more severe and in different states, it starts to get lower and lower. Sometimes you see it all the way down to 13, 14. Is 16 too old for her to go back and petition to be back in the juvie area? And how is that going to help or hurt her, especially with these medical experts weighing in?
You can always ask the court to decertify a case back to juvenile court if there's a basis to do that. Now, obviously, at this point, they're proceeding in adult court, and I would suggest that it's going to continue in adult court because she meets the specifications for someone who can be tried as an adult for certain specific crimes. What's interesting here is that the Supreme Court has really acted on juveniles in terms of punishment. We know that you can't execute a juvenile any longer, and you also cannot have mandatory life in prison as a sentence for juveniles. So while she may get life in prison at some point if she's convicted, there's a lot of information. There's a process that you have to go through in order to show that she is not amenable to any sort of treatment, and life in prison without parole is the appropriate punishment.
Could the dueling medical experts and their findings help lead to possibly a plea bargain and this never goes in August? Because it seems like there's a lot of evidence against her.
Yeah, that's always possible, Ted, as more information is revealed, especially if that information is mitigating, if it tends to show that maybe she's not as responsible for what happened as it may first appear, if she has some mental health issues or other issues that haven't been addressed. And that could ultimately lead to a plea. But that mental health information is mainly mitigation. They're not saying that this is an insanity defense where she's not responsible for what she did, but maybe some mitigation.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Again, this Sarah Grace Patrick case has been moved to August. We'll continue to monitor it as it winds its way through the system.